you need. We're going to talk about random stuff while you're ready.
You're going to read that scripture to them?
And we're live.
No, we're talking about pizza.
Are you live though?
We are, but we're going to get pizza. We're going to talk about pizza.
I'm going to
We're going to go get pizza
You're going to
right
make a new
now.
coffee? Okay, cool. Yeah, Murray's going to get some new coffee, which is a good idea. You know, I'm so grateful that we have windows in here and we were able to open them because like 2 weeks ago, Miranda and I were sweating so much, like my back was sweating. I had so much back sweat going on and I was just like staying in it. I was like, I just got to do it. But then I cracked that window open and now last week's episode, Miranda had a little blankie on her lap. I don't know if you guys noticed that. It just had a nice little touch of like hominess, you know, because we have the fire kicking in over here, which we probably got to shut it off. And then we have the airflow coming in here, just grazing our faces. So it just feels very pleasant. I can smell the outdoor air.
The evergreen trees.
I can smell the evergreens saying good morning to me, as I will say good morning to all the viewers that are jumping on right now. Please, as always, where are you checking in from? We want to know these things. And as I wait for Miranda to get her new coffee, and she's just going to get a new coffee. What do we got here? Cheese Pizza Fridays is our Lent tradition. Hello, Julie's always in here. Love to have Julie on here. Okay, so what we were just chatting about really quick, Whittier, California. Oh, you're like in the inland. Is that like Inland Empire, Jody? That's like, that's like the raza over there for sure. Detroit, Michigan, and we're pushing away from the raza from Detroit, Michigan at this point. We got Leslie in here, Matthew Hoffman, Morning Crew, Augusta, Georgia, St. Paul, Minnesota.
Wow.
What is there like a lot of Hispanics in Augusta, Georgia?
Hey, it's Athena.
What do we have? Athena? Where's she at?
Minnesota.
What? Oh, Athena. Hey, good morning, Athena. Good to see you here. Colorado Springs, Latinos. Oh, yeah, Jody. It's like super Latinos. So I used to deliver a lot of like meals back in the day into that Whittier area. Hello from Westminster. Cool. Good to see everybody checking in really quick. So we'll just keep checking in and see where you guys are at. But we were talking about Friday nights is pizza night, and I get to fire up the Uni pizza ovens, which we have. We have a couple of them. I just admitted that out loud, and I have no shame in doing so. Because we had a company Christmas party, and so it was definitely necessary to have 2 pizza ovens. But I've been really loving lighting up the charcoal and the wood now. And today I'm going to light up some like fruit flavored wood to see if that like does anything.
What fruits?
I don't know. I didn't read that amount of detail in the bag, but I will get to you guys for sure about that. But what I was saying to Salvi and Emma, by the way, if you guys don't know, this is Emma and Salvi. They're behind the scenes here on the show, and that way it's double action behind the show, so we can pull things up. So that way we try to embarrass ourselves as little as possible. And we can get fact checked in real time through the Google AI. Tonight I was telling Salvi and Emma that I make my own pizza dough, and usually there's like sugar in it, but instead of sugar, last week I actually started using honey, and it was actually really tasty. So then I bought 2 different kinds of honey. One that was like wildflower, and one's clover honey. So now I'm just going to mess with 2 different kinds of honey when I make the pizza dough. And then what else am I going to do? And I was just telling them that I want to start to make like little breadsticks of like pepperoni and cheese, so I can just start dunking it in like my marinara or my ranch. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? What you think about that?
I know what you're saying.
I love it.
That sounds tasty, right?
It's a slippery slope with those braided breadsticks.
What's the slippery slope around it?
Well, they're just so addictive. You're just like,
They're just
It's
so
only-
good.
That's why you got to stick to the tradition, bro. You're not making it every day.
yeah, it's great.
Do we have any bakers
for that
in here
one-
in the house? Do we have anybody
yeah.
in the house watching that like can resonate with this and is not terrified like Salvi is around the slippery slope? That's what
Dude,
it is.
I've been
Mhm.
getting into sourdough. That's my character arc right now.
I
Sourdough
just
pizza.
saw a video last night. I don't know if Miranda sent it to me, but it was like when you get the dough for the sourdough and then you shred a bunch of butter and then you mix it in with your sourdough and then you let it reproof again.
Mhm.
And then you put it and then you bake it and it's like a sourdough croissant.
I've seen people make croissants before, but I've never heard of that method. That sounds cool. I just made dumplings for
Did you
chicken
send
and
it to me, the
dumplings.
sourdough with butter?
No, it's probably your mom.
It wasn't my mom. I think I
didn't
just
send it
stumbled
to you.
upon it. But anyway, it got me inspired to want to make like some kind of sourdough croissant. That's what you walked into. You know.
I can't hear anything.
Oh, Salvi was worried that, I was telling them that I want to, now that I've been getting more comfortable making our pizzas,
Mhm.
that I want to do like breadsticks with like pepperoni and cheese, so I can just dunk them instead.
Yeah.
But then Salvi was saying that it's dangerous, slippery slope to like jump you up to 15%.
Well, I mean, are you going to eat that in addition to the pizza?
No, I would eat it instead of the pizza.
Oh, see,
Okay, well, that's different.
You know what I'm saying?
That's different. Because if you're starting to eat like breadsticks in addition to the pizza, then I think
Oof, that's
Salvi's
dangerous
correct.
because you can't have the pizza, the breadsticks, and the Caesar salad. That's like a 4,000 calorie meal in one sitting right
I
there.
think just the pizza and the salad.
No,
are
I
probably
think
pretty high.
I think our pizza is actually pretty good. I would say that we're probably consuming like 1,000 less. You don't
Chris
think
said
so?
honey on pizza.
It depends on how much of it you're eating.
Yeah, we go wilding out. Okay, cool. So, welcome.
Hello.
How you feeling today?
I'm a little sore, and this week has just got a little like I've had a hard time like remembering what day it is.
Salvi, the first question that Salvi asked was like, "How are you? Did you guys get sleep last night?" And I was like, "Can you define?"
Yeah, like what would you consider the like for
7 hours.
7 hours of what?
Of what? Of
Sleep.
nighttime?
Just your like eyes are closed.
Like the
Not
entire
necessarily
7 hours,
REM.
or like I'm in my bed or in a bed. Like I guess it depends on what you consider to be asleep.
I don't. Yeah.
But no, it certainly it was not a stretch of 7 hours.
No way. It was horrible. I just told Salvi, I feels like we're in a video game, and if we were to wake up every morning, it would be like hard setting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, today you woke up and it's hard. It's like,
Yeah.
it like sucks.
Well, and then we didn't stay up late, but like we watched. Did you tell them about the show yet?
We will. All right, we'll get the show started. So Salvi and Emma are going to be in the background for any of you guys that are tuning in really quick. For all 50 of you viewers right here, once again, hello. We got people from all over. We got people from like the Whittier area, which is like back in the Whittier. Like that's my people right there. You know, like we're in it. And then we got people from Georgia. You know, I don't know what parts of Georgia, but we got people from all over.
Oh, are they in Atlanta? They should go to that church.
Is there anybody from Atlanta watching
really
right now?
wanna go.
Anybody from Atlanta?
We certainly have members from Atlanta. It's a really big city.
North Carolina. We got Carla
nice.
Fowler. Awesome. Cool. Well, there's a lot of things kind of going on a little bit in our fitness space. Well, for starters, update week number 2. I think last week we had our guest Matt Souza on the show, which was an awesome conversation. So you guys, if you guys haven't had a chance to check out that episode, that was really cool. Getting to know Souza. He's just like really involved in the CrossFit space, and he's just very insightful as far as like business stuff goes. Really entrepreneurial mindset. I really enjoyed chatting with him.
Mm-hmm.
But we opened up last week's episode with just saying like, here we go. We got Matt Hoffman saying Augusta is about 2.5 hours from Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
And this week, this week's been hard. It's been challenging.
I feel like we say that every week.
I know it sounds crazy, but the thing is like, there's a couple things that happen. So one, what would you say was the most difficult day of like, we had Crew's birthday on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Our son
It seems like it was a month ago.
It just does feel like it was a month ago. We were just so wrecked. And then what happened? Monday, Salvi, you want to pull up Miranda's clip? What was the update? Because Miranda versus
It's so funny
Castro.
because I have no idea. I don't remember Monday.
Isn't that crazy?
Like what happened on Monday? What are we about to watch?
Yeah, so Salvi, pull up what happened on Monday. So Miranda, week 1 update when it comes to Castro versus Alcaraz.
Oh yeah, we did the. Oh gosh, I was just not. You know what? I was not I had zero desire to be uncomfortable that day, but it was the last day. Like I couldn't put it off. I was so sore from the devil press, push up workout in my triceps. And I was just so exhausted from the lack of sleep. There was like zero push. So that's why I was like, thank goodness I know his score. So I can just make sure that I get past that. Cause there was just zero desire. In the burpees, there was no hustle at any point.
Right.
Which was the only way to go faster in that workout because I never broke up the clean.
Go ahead and give it a little play real quick. For those of you guys who haven't had a chance to check this out, but yes, Miranda won.
Did you change it? Did you move it? Did you change the dumbbell?
I have not been drug tested for 10 years. So,
Ooh, shoot.
yeah, we did the push-up, devil press, push press workout on Friday, and then the thrusters and the burpee box jumps the next day, and my triceps, like the lower part, like by the elbow, it's like wrecked. And I know that that's all this workout is pretty much. Carlene told me that Dave did this workout 3 times. I texted him. He told me his score. I think he said he got 182 reps, which is through the 21s. So I told him I was going to get 183. This is a very street parking-ish workout. I might have done this one anyway. I'm doing the open because it gave me a hard time for publicly saying that I didn't think I was going to do it.
I'll sign up and do it if there's a leaderboard that is just me versus you.
Let's do it. The challenge is 100% accepted.
I totally get it because we, at street parking, we do love and support CrossFit. And we put the open workouts in the app so that people can log them. We don't program them in because that's tough to do, not knowing what they are. But people are logging them and some of our members are doing it. I've seen a lot of members going to affiliates to do it. Does that count? Essentially, that was like a muscle clean press, right? Mm-hmm. I told him I was planning on cheating. I mean, I worked out for such a long time with Barber and Philippa. It's just in me, to try to like skirt the rules a little bit. There, he said consistent. I'm going to say consistency is key. You and the NorCal team were always trying to cheat.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you, Salvi. Salvi, you can pull it. There we go. Thank you. So yeah, that was, how did you feel after week 1? And like, How are you feeling about it?
What do you mean? Like, how did I feel? Like, what do you see?
Not physically wise, but like, that we're in the season again.
I 0% care.
Yeah.
And that's just like me. Like, I haven't looked at a leaderboard.
Right.
Other than the one that I created. It's just me and Dave. So I created a leaderboard. If you guys want to find it, I think it says Castro versus Alcaraz. I don't know if that's public and other people can see it or if only we can see it because we're on it. But I didn't think about it at all after I entered my score, and I 0% care about it.
Wow. And looking back on that,
and it's not because I 0% care, that I think everyone should have that attitude. I'm just not why would I? Yeah.
What's the incentive other than just having
What's really funny is one of my friends that I had met this past year who knew and knows almost nothing about me. I'm not gonna say her name. Anyways, she messaged me and she was like, "Are you doing the CrossFit Games this year?" And I was like, because she probably saw it on my Instagram, and I was like, I mean, I'm doing the open, but no. And it was just so funny. She's like, "You're gonna crush it," and I was like, "That's like comparing a high-level high school track athlete to an Olympian at this point." But for someone who doesn't know running, you look at both of them and they look fast, and you don't know the cavernous Grand Canyon of difference between those two levels of fitness. Because it's they both look fit and they're both running fast to me, so funny.
Salvi, what level, where are you on the spectrum of high school elite athlete versus Olympian? Where do you feel like your body's at right now, Salvi, with that?
Just a little above high school athlete.
Junior college,
for junior college,
one that you don't have to apply to. You can just like a community college.
Not even that, like an online college, online college, or a community college, or like a university.
No, not a university.
Community college.
You feel like you're community college?
A little above the online.
Yeah. University, you'd have to be scouted out and stuff for that.
Yeah. We ain't being scouted out right now.
No one's coming to scout us.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, week 1 was the workout.
You did it twice.
I did it twice.
Why?
And because when I did it on Friday, I was so, that was one of our worst nights. I think we had a total of 3 hours, maybe. Mm-hmm. I felt like I was just running on pure caffeine for that workout. I was like on 6 cups of coffee. I was like on my second venti cold brew,
Mhm.
you know? And so I was like, oh, I wonder if like I could just beat it again. And because again, that one was very simple to do.
Mhm.
And to be honest, if I'm being completely honest, I looked at the street parking vault workout on Monday, and that looked way harder.
We still haven't done it.
I haven't done it, and actually, that one looks so
Oh, we
much
gotta do it
harder to
today.
me than what the open was.
So much worse.
And so I was like, nah, let me just do it again. And then you were doing it, so I didn't want to make you feel alone. It's like, all right, I'll just do it with you again. Let me see if I can beat my
Caitlin
score.
came and did it with us too.
Caitlin came and did it. I did not. This was the first time ever that I repeated a workout and that I did not get a better score.
Wow,
Ever.
I've done that several times. You know, my best open finish ever though was in 2015, which was probably also when I was the most fit. But we weren't that year. As a team, we were not allowed to do it more than once.
That's right.
We had to go sell out.
That's right.
Because at that point, like we were like supposed to go win
You guys were
games,
training
so
for the
we
game,
needed
so
to like
it's-
focus on our training
Yeah.
for that. And so we were all only allowed to do it once.
Well, it's so interesting. So I had a moment of reflection during that because I was 2 reps shy. I think I got into the round of, I finished the 27 burpees and I did 6 hang clean and jerks the first time I did it.
Mhm.
And I did 4 hang clean and
Mm.
jerks the second time I did it on Monday. And it was like multiple things were running through my head. It was like, wow. So often people are like, you can't out-train a bad diet. But for me, it was like, whoa, you can't out-train bad sleep either.
Our diet's not exactly like
It's not dialed
either.
in, and not in a bad way. It's just it's not consistent with our fueling method. Our fueling is not optimal.
Yeah, there are many
for-
days where we're not eating enough and we're just kind of like randomly snacking.
Correct. And, you know, and then for us, okay, so then our lack of sleep, you know, I was kind of like sad for a moment. I was like, whoa, okay, well, this is kind of where your fitness is at right now. And it is what it is. But then I was able to kind of allow myself to be sad for a moment and then just remind ourselves like, or maybe these are the things that people don't really talk about, especially as people that used to be athletes. We were talking about this at dinner last night, and you said, well, I had that moment in pregnancy that took me out of that mindset where, well, I've never got pregnant. So
Really?
really, but you know, given that this happened and it really put me in a position of reflection, I was like, well, just how far removed, because now you're seeing like the leaderboard and you see all these like huge scores. And you're
Or
like,
you don't look at
or
it
you-
at all, and I don't know.
actually,
what we're getting.
let me make a correction. I never looked at the leaderboard. What I did see is like all the top scores being posted.
Yeah, people on IG and
And
stuff.
because like that was the world that I was in, I was like, okay, I used to be one of those top 1%, but now like, and you know, 7 years ago, you know, even like 2 years ago, I would have got way better than I got now. And it was just a moment of, even though so much fitness has been lost, again, we're still fit, which is, you know, we're generally fit, even above, we're still in the 1% of the world, but so much more has been gained.
Mhm.
And it was a moment of just kind of sitting back and allowing myself to be sad for that version that still is clinging onto something, a form of an identity,
Mhm.
you know, and how that really, it takes a while for it to go away, but then allowing myself to then see the light, which is like, look at all the beautiful things that have come in sacrifice of that. So, okay, sacrifice this to gain this.
Do you feel like you truly care, or do you feel like other people's that you have in your mind that other people still expect you to get
No, it's not
to
even.
perform a certain way?
I would say at first it was an expectation of others expecting me to perform a certain way. Now, recently, it's more of a recognizing how much of an idol it was for me to be
Mhm.
super fit,
Mhm.
and how I allowed that to be a huge part of an identity for me,
Mhm.
and how, it gave me so much value. It made me, my self-esteem was boosted by it, and now that you know, again, it's just a comparison of that
Mhm.
version of myself, and I have to allow myself for that version of myself to then compare it's better. The reframe now that I'm having is maybe having that version compare themselves to this version of me, which I feel is just on a much healthier spiritual path.
Mhm.
You know, with our family and everything, and so that's the reward by sacrificing this. But it doesn't mean it didn't hurt, though.
I texted you yesterday because obviously I have to do all 3 of them. I texted you yesterday. I said, when are you going to do this one? And you said never, LOL. Then you said we can do it on Monday. So are you going to do it?
Well, first of all, did that make sense what I was saying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I was just making sure. Sometimes when I go into these rambles.
Well, I always think of it as like an NFL team with a salary cap. If you spend all your money on the quarterback, you have this amazing quarterback, but the rest of your team is garbage because you only have so much money. And so life is like that, right? Like you have your spiritual self, you have your whatever hobbies you might have. Obviously, we have 3 children that require some of our time and attention. And there you have your fitness, we have the business, we have our marriage, you have all of that. And like, what got us to the physical shape that we were at was we took all the money. Well, you more than me, I would say, because I spread mine evenly, pretty career and fitness. But
for sure.
I put all my money in those 2 things and in literally nothing else. No friendships, no relationships, like nothing was. But you put you spread yours around in some.
I was like leaving tips and shit elsewhere. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, does that make sense? So
Oh,
I think what you're saying is you had to take some out of that bucket.
Had to.
Or our children have forcefully taken some out of our bucket and put it in their own. But yeah, is that kind of like what you were trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you texted me about this week's workout that they've dropped, and absolutely like there's no part of me that has any desire to do it.
Are you going to do it?
Salvi, are we going to do it? Pop in. I'll let Salvi choose. Are we doing it?
So I think when we were talking about this the other day when it came out, we did the 5-rounder, not this one. So I actually haven't done this one yet. I don't know if you have.
Oh, you've never done this open workout?
Oh.
Neither have I.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Because what year was it
for
from?
fun, maybe. Yeah, let's go. 22.
Yeah, no. I was pregnant with Kuji. Like, just got born when this workout came out.
Wow. Okay, so this is what I will say then. This is actually a really good segue into what we're going to be talking about today, which is intensity. Because
first of all, I would have been so hardcore into this workout. This would have been my best placing in the open in whatever year it was programmed.
Yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah,
you combine thrusters with a pull from the bar. It's like, forget it.
Wow. Yeah, I look at this workout and I'm like, nah, I don't want to tap into this level of intensity. Like, this is going to hurt so bad because I'm not limited by the movements. Like, I look at all that. I'm like, cool. Yeah. Like, awesome. It's more of, this is an intensity workout. And, Carlene, gosh, dang it, Carlene.
Carlene, just because she can't do it because she's still limited. So she's trying to live vicariously through you.
Let me tell you why. Okay. It's a little bit deeper than that. Okay, Carlene, let me vent to you like why I'm crying inside when I see it. It's more so because, I feel like I'm more in my fitness on the road of consistency and less intensity. And if I hit that workout with intensity, I will throw up and I will cry. And
have you ever thrown up?
No. And it'll make me, maybe I'm just like accepting that I'm just gonna be a little basic B this week.
Okay. How about this? Yeah. So when I was pregnant, you were very mean. When I would want you to do a workout with like a weight vest or something like that. Right. You would never do it. And I was just like, why won't you just like do this with me? Like, it's one workout. Who cares? Just wear a weight vest so I don't feel alone. So maybe I have to do it because I've made it public that I'm going to do it. And it's also going to hurt me in a way because I know that it's something that I would have been in the past so good at. I mean, I'm going to be doing those. I don't remember the last time I did a chest to bar pull up. Not that I can't because I'm a very strong puller. Yeah. But it's just going to be annoying and it's not at all what it used to be. So maybe you could just do it in solidarity with me.
Solidarity.
Because I have to do it. What? I don't have a choice. I didn't have a choice to be pregnant.
I like the solidarity. You know what? All right. Sounds good. In the season of, CrossFit and what this means to, the world and
it's just a workout.
It's just a workout. All right.
We just have to beat Dave.
I guess I know it's just a workout. I'm having to overcome my fear of like how much it's going to hurt.
I texted Dave yesterday. I said, can you do a bar muscle up?
I know, right? Right. What do we got here? Julian is in his more than nothing era.
He finally found it. We got him there.
I'm in the more than nothing era right now, for
this
sure.
This is the first time.
The older I get, the better I was. My uncle used to say this, and I think I get it now. I absolutely, Angela. I agree with that. Yeah, I'll do it. And that way I can continue to like not kill that identity of myself that has such high expectations, but more of like, I'm going to invite him. I'm going to invite that version of me and show him another way.
Well, they say that's like the most frustrating one of the more frustrating things about life is because by the time you get to the age where you're wise, your body has deteriorated to some degree. So like if you had the wisdom that you have at like 40, 50 years old when in a 20-year-old body, like how
you wouldn't make mistakes.
Yeah, you would just run through brick wall. I mean, you would just like be able to be so much smarter. And you know, this is just a fitness example, but you could be so much smarter about your training and your nutrition, and you're not you're not overdoing it, and can see the longer picture. But we don't have that wisdom until it's too late.
Okay, so I said something that was actually what we work a lot on in our therapy, right? It's, we all tend to have managers in us, and I'm not trying to go too deep into it, but what I'm recognizing now is that there was a manager speaking up around my fear around this workout, which ultimately, in processing, uncovered the fact that I'm just scared because I've set an expectation for myself that is not realistic, and I'm afraid of failing that and what that makes me feel. So by being able to process all this out loud, now I'm realizing, because they say don't kill those versions of yourselves because that's unkind, like that's part of who we are, but it's more of, I'm going to invite that version, that fear, the expectations and everything with what I know now, and just be like, hey, we're going to show you another way. Like, let's break down these expectations that you feel you have, and let's just have fun. At the end of the day, it is just another workout.
You don't even have to, you don't have to share what you get. Even.
No, if I do it now that I'm like, having this full-on therapy session on this like live chat, I'll definitely just, we can go live on Monday and do it. I don't care.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm like really, I think it's like 12-minute time cap, which seems pretty like, that's a healthy.
Yeah, that's super healthy. Like
and I'm still capable of doing bar muscle ups instead of 15 in a row. I'm gonna have to chip away at that, but I would love to be able to finish this workout.
Cool, let's do it. All right, Salvi. See Carlene. Okay, we're doing it. Okay, we're doing it.
Yay! Hey,
we're gonna do it on Monday. Okay.
Your camera.
What's up?
You're a little glowy.
I thought we just had the like.
I'm glowy right now.
I thought we had the Selling Sunset filter.
Who's glowy? Is Miranda glowy?
You are.
You are. Both. Just wipe the lens.
Oh, they're about to see what our skin really looks like. I don't know if
is that better?
With your finger. I feel like you need to wipe it with your shirt or something.
Did that help it better or not? Is that better?
Here. I don't want to stand up with my like whole body in front of this camera right now.
Here,
this is great.
Like if I like wipe it with my shirt, it's gonna be like, my chest is right in the camera.
Okay.
Like that. Oh, Banner's PJs. Great.
There we go.
Is that better?
But now you moved it, so pop it back up a little bit. There we go.
Oh, that's so much better. Is that good, Salvi?
That's better.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. We had that, that good filter.
All right. What does Kate Sawyer say? Youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah, because when you're young and you have all the energy, you're just wasted on dumb stuff. And then once you're like wise and you're like, then you're just exhausted.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So we're going to talk about the segue as far as intensity. I went back and went into like our Unlocked newsletter series.
Do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah. So Salvi, can you pull that up, please? So on the Street Parking website, and most of you guys probably are members of the Street Parking community watching this, but I felt like this was a perfect time to kind of bring this back up, given that I've been seeing some people in some of the pages saying, in our community, oh, it's just another street parking workout week 1, and, it's almost like people sometimes seeing the comments, even publicly, this workout was very accessible week 1 for everyone. And a lot of our members are like, oh, this is just another street parking workout. But you push intensity, but somehow for some reason, people go hard at these kinds of things, right? Now there's some kind of stakes on the line. But we wrote this, you wrote this a while ago. Do you remember when you did this?
Kim?
She's
on here. I don't know. Maybe like, I feel like I had the idea for these. We were at an Airbnb when I blacked out and started typing some of them.
Sure.
Where were we? No idea.
Okay.
There was a baby involved. Maybe
So-
like 2019, 2020,
Yeah.
2019,
So pretty much
2019.
it's intensity over volume is greater than volume. And I know you definitely did a whole episode on like why you still choose to do CrossFit, and you go heavy on this,
Mhm.
but it was like a section of it as well. But I think it's I just kind of want to reread it to you and see how your perspective on this, how have you changed your perspective on this a little bit, or how you've integrated it given life experience.
Am I going to be talking as a coach of others or just about myself?
Yourself.
Just for me personally.
Yeah, for you personally. Yeah. Because, or maybe both, right?
Okay.
So it's you, and then how you can speak to it as a coach for others.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing, and people can find this again on the street parking website. Kim says first edition was probably in 2019.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, nice. People can find this on the public website. Okay.
And the reason is because I felt like, similar to today, even though we have these, we were just answering the same questions over and over and over. We were trying to help people and coach people and give people an understanding over and over and over this in the same things. So we created these, and now they're part of the like onboarding of new members. Now, whether they read them or listen to them or not, I don't know. But that's why they were created.
It's almost interesting. Like it almost feels like, oh, let's just get into it, because, you know, as I was going over it this morning, I'm like, man, it really is the same concept of like Dave Ramsey talking about finances over and over. It's like, there's no, like, it's not going to change. Maybe we can add some kind of shiny object to make you pay attention, but the message is, it doesn't change. It's
right.
This is what works.
Right.
Okay. So it says, never mistake duration for effort. All the tools with, okay. Before worrying about intensity, consistency should have already been established. So I don't even want to write what you said, but what do you think about that statement?
Yeah, I think, you know, I still agree with that. I still align with that. And, you know, we can talk about this being written in 2019, but most of this I had been saying since 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at 18 years
right.
of saying this, because
Salvi, you can pull us into this.
You know, within CrossFit, for example, they have the charter of mechanics first, then consistency, and then intensity. So what that means is the mechanics, like you need to learn the movements well and move well enough safely, right? That doesn't mean perfect. You know, it doesn't mean arbitrary movement standards that are just for competition. But it means, you know, understand the movements, learn the movements, move well. Consistency means both in when you're both under fatigue and when you're fresh, you can still move relatively the same. So your movement, there's not a ton of movement breakdown when you're under fatigue. But consistency also means how often you're actually exercising or working out. And so you might have somebody who starts out and they move really well right away because they were a former athlete or something like that, but it's been years since or they're just coordinated, but it's been years since they've worked out. You don't want to dose that person with intensity right away. That person actually would be the most likely candidate for becoming injured or like rhabdo or something like that, because they do come from a background and a history of being able to push. So that person, you need to see them and not encourage them to like black out or like go, you know, what is the term that we used to
Peacock.
use? Peacock or no, I can't even remember. Send it. Yeah, you don't want to encourage somebody like that to send it yet until they've reestablished, you know, just consistency in moving at all. Otherwise, they're like nervous system and everything. Just you're lighting them on fire way too soon. But then even somebody who's super deconditioned, like you got to get them to understand the movements and be able to move through the range of motion and move consistently. And then, you know, this is exactly why we created the shift workouts, because we've broken down, like even you'll notice if you look at those shift workouts that even something like a thruster will say goblet squat, dumbbell press. And people are like, that's just a thruster. It is, but it's a thruster broken up where I'm not expecting this person to understand how to feed the drive from the legs into the press. We're segmenting it to really help them to understand you stand all the way up and then you press, and later that will transfer better to a thruster. They get to bring the dumbbell all the way back to their chest before they think about squatting, and they're not trying to move super fast through a movement that's more technical like that. Right. So you want them to move consistently in movements that are more simple, and then you can dose somebody with intensity. Now, again, like in the podcast that I did not that long ago, what does intensity mean? Well, there's a mathematical equation, but really it's relative to the person. It's what's intense for me now would have been low intensity mathematically for me 10 years ago,
Right.
but it's intense for me now because of where my level of fitness is. When you start out, what's intense for you at the beginning, you end up being able to build and build and build on that. It doesn't stay the same. But generally what we're talking about when we're saying intensity is, hey, 1, 2, 3 times a week, you're going to send it. You're going to go as hard as you can in this workout. Essentially what people end up doing in the open is they push themselves much harder than they normally would. And we encourage people to do that on the regular. Now, are there times, and I think you'll probably get into this later in the thing, but so I'll stop.
Yeah. It's very interesting, right? Because the first week I remember I started CrossFit. So one of my first workouts, it was like a very open-esque type of workout. I had like burpees and like lunges and something. So there was no real limiting factor for me as someone that was new, because it was. Was
it a class workout, or was it like this is a new person?
It was a class workout. But then afterwards, and Becca Voigt was my coach. I definitely went in there. I was like 22 years old. So I was like very hot-headed and like very overconfident,
it was bad when you were 26.
It was horrible. And so take that. No, it's okay. I was 22-year-old me. But then the people that got done way in the lower goal time, she was like, okay, hey, cash out 100 pull-ups, 100 pull-ups for time.
Oh,
and
Becca.
And I think I don't blame her.
But you were a rhabdo candidate because like you're gonna do it. And
I remember that weekend I had this like red carpet event for the Haywire movie, and I remember I just could not.
Oh my!
It was so bad.
100?
I did, but
complete it.
Literally by pull up 40, I was like doing like the awkward
like
tipping.
What Knox does.
Yeah, it was horrible. But I finished all 100, but that was completely unsafe. And I look back at that, and I think even for her in that moment, her wisdom as a coach was blinded by her trying to prove a point to an arrogant, entitled, cocky 22-year-old, because that was completely unwise. It'd be like me having these high school kids and being like, okay, clearly they can handle, they can recover well. So boom.
I think coaches do that a lot though. And like, that's the thing that people don't understand is the person that you have to be most concerned with overdoing intensity too early is somebody who has a background of fitness, but comes from a different type of fitness. So whether it's somebody who has been normally doing just like bodybuilding style training and comes in, we had a lot of that when I had my gym because that's the culture that I had been in. So our friends and stuff would come in. And we would do the same thing. Now I would never have had somebody do 100 pull-ups, but like, I remember very specifically doing DT when I had been doing CrossFit for a while, and DT is like deadlifts, hang power cleans and jerks with one of our friends who was had only ever done bodybuilding. So we had him try to do DT and he just got destroyed and we never saw him again. And so that's the risk that you run too with intensity too early is people are just like, they wreck themselves so much.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like when I mentioned the rhabdo to him, it's like an excessive breakdown of muscle fiber. We all break down muscle every time we work out. That's what the soreness is.
Yeah.
But an excessive amount that it gets in your bloodstream and your like kidneys can't filter it. The people I think coaches a lot of times they like get really worried about really out of shape people. Those people are not fit enough to give themselves rhabdo in most cases. It's the I used to be fit people that are and have a lot of muscle mass that are the biggest risk factors for that. Well,
I remember I was like, man, I look back at that. I could have got really hospitalized and I didn't have health insurance.
Missed your red carpet event.
I could have gone there. I didn't have health insurance at the time. I didn't even have Obamacare.
There was no Obama yet, right? Or was that during Obama?
I think 2012. Who was president in 2012? Was that Obama?
Oh my word.
Salvi, who was president in 2012?
Probably. Yeah. Right?
Ego is the heck of a drug. Oh man, it was so horrible.
Yeah, I think so.
Emma, can you? Salvi's working really slow today. Can you fact check us, please?
Yeah.
Was it Obama?
I think so.
Can somebody?
13 years ago, it had to be.
We'll see.
Anyways, it doesn't matter.
Anyway, bottom line, I didn't have.
Confirm it was Obama.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I didn't even have Obamacare, and I was like, nah, I was too stubborn for it. I was like, I don't need health insurance. I'm fit. But that could have taken me down.
I would venture to guess that at least 50% of the people in that class that they didn't have health insurance.
I would, yeah, for sure. I mean, like I wasn't even paying taxes during that time, let alone, health insurance.
Yeah, it's
you know
kind of
what
hard
I'm
to get Obamacare if you don't pay taxes.
Yeah. I was like, I wasn't a citizen, but I was a citizen during that time.
Okay.
Anyway, but what's interesting though, fast forward to now, I wouldn't do 100 pull-ups in a workout right now. I would actually,
and that's like the cap that I'll program for us.
That is 100%. Like if there was a workout that had pull-ups in it again, because I don't enjoy kipping pull-ups anymore. I don't like warming up with them. No, I kipping, yes, butterfly pull-ups. There we go. Correction. Butterfly. It's not that I won't do it, but yeah, it goes back to, I would start with 60 to 75 pull-ups max in a workout for 2 to 3 sessions to build consistency before I go for volume. Exactly. Because I know 60 to 75 pull-ups with intensity, would then get me to that place. Same thing with GHD sit-ups.
Now, I would say that chart of the mechanics, consistency, intensity, and even that thing that you read about consistency before intensity, right? Like it's cyclical, like through your life. So it's not like, okay, I've checked the box. It's not like our education system. It's not like, okay, I went to high school and now I'm in junior high. Now I'm in high school. Now I'm in college. And once you're in, you don't ever go back.
You don't go back to high school, but I'll go back to like community college or online.
But that's not
Arizona State, Phoenix University online. Is that
you
a
didn't
thing?
do any of
No.
that. But that's not how this works. So like several times throughout the course of my life or fitness career, I've had to cycle back through. So like injuries, for example, you go back to the mechanics phase where like after my knee, I had to relearn how to squat and just hit the range of motion and make sure it was all stable before I tried to squat at any sort of pace or with any sort of weight. So you cycle back through. Same thing after all 3 pregnancies. You have to like figure out how it all works and learn again. But I would say even in difficult stages, if it's not a pregnancy or injury, even difficult stages, you might be like, okay, I need to just stay I need to zone back into the consistency phase and just worry about maintaining consistency. And right now, intensity is just not in the cards. And it's not that it's never going to be in the cards or randomly on a one-off open workout. You don't, try to do it, but it's sick. You can go through it. And I think there's so much value in the street parking program. We have the like fix your squat extra program. I don't care if you've been doing this type of training for 20 years. There's value in going back and redialing in your movement.
Absolutely. The basics. Absolutely. Well, let's move on to the next thing. And the next thing is, so what you said there was, this means consistency training days for at least a few months. Once this is dialed in, you might be thinking, okay, I'm consistent. So now to really get results, I should do more, right? And you're like, no, the answer isn't to add in more workouts. You actually need to turn up the heat and bring intensity into the equation. So again, the next question was like, you answered was, what do you mean by intensity?
And this is such a great gauge too, because, and Caitlin and I talk about this all the time because she always complains about people on Facebook and what some of the stuff that they say. Here's a great gauge for if you need to go harder in your workouts. So, right now, even when I'm doing a workout and it's nowhere near the intensity that I'm used to, because of what's going on in the rest of my life, I'm not like, oh, that was easy. I'm not like, oh, I kind of want to do more stuff. Right now, even when I go at like an 80%, I'm like, that's good. Like, I'm good. That's all I got for today. Now, what we see a lot of times with our members and where they're confusing this is they will do the daily workout and then afterwards, like, I want to do more. And what I would encourage there is not that doing more is always wrong,
right?
Because some people they love training and they have specific goals,
they have the time
and everything. Yeah. But what I would question is if you're always feeling like fresh, you're not ever laying down on the ground or needing to like be like, that's it, I'm done for today after the main workout. You are probably going to gain more. Well, you will certainly gain more from your training if you just go harder in the daily workout than if you're just holding back so that you can do more.
Right.
So there's a hold back there. Like if this week's vault is a perfect example. If you do this week's vault and afterwards you're like, all right, I feel like doing, another workout, or I feel like doing a 52-week endurance, you did this week's vault incorrectly. And then some of us, like you and I, when we do this week's vault, we're just going to hang on for dear life
Yeah.
And it's not going to be anywhere near what we might be capable of if we were getting good sleep, but we're just checking that consistency box and doing what we can.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's going to feel very like we're working through mud.
Yeah. And that's, yes, absolutely. All right. So then the next thing is to keep it simple, intensity equals effort. If someone is super consistent and not seeing results, a lack of intensity in the training is almost always the reason why, aside from what might be going on in the kitchen. Intensity is uncomfortable.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's pretty, we're in this room right now and I have a piano in here, right? Everything that we are saying about fitness applies to me playing that piano. I cannot play the piano fast until I know where the keys are. I cannot play the piano fast until I've played it slow over and over and over again. When I'm learning,
that train of thought real quick, because actually I want give Shelly ability to respond to this question. Do you ever have that CrossFit fatigue? If so, what do you do when you are not mentally in the game for the daily workouts? So Shelly, the question I have for you is, what do you mean by CrossFit fatigue?
I think I know what she means.
So with that, we don't want to assume what you're saying. So can you answer that for us, please? Okay.
Can I go back to my piano
Yes,
analogy?
absolutely. Piano analogy.
And I have previously in my life known how to play the piano.
Yes.
I learned when I was like 10 to 12 years old. I took piano lessons. wasn't like really, really great at it, but I knew how to read music. When I first bought this piano a couple of years ago, I had to get the same books that I played. I found the same books that I learned on when I was 10 years old. And I had to start all over again at like remembering. Now I remembered much quicker than if I was somebody brand new who had never played the piano before. It came back pretty quickly. But still, like I have to like go through with just my right hand, go through with just my left hand. Then I can start to like put them together. Then I can play a little bit faster. And that is exactly how it works in your fitness. Now, if I stop playing for a while, or if I'm really, really tired, or if I can't just jump in and like play beautifully a brand new piece of music, or even something that I had been practicing, you have to stay in it. The consistency with something like that is the most important piece to you not losing it, is the most important piece to you progressing, all of that. Now, with that being said, if I only ever played, this is to answer your question that you just had, if I only ever played from that beginner book, I'm never going to get any better.
Yeah.
I have to now play pieces of music that are challenging for me, that push me outside of my comfort zone. That is essentially the same thing as introducing intensity. If I only ever use the 20-pound dumbbells and I only ever move them at a certain rate, if I always break after 5 reps, if I always take a sip of water at 1 minute in, if I only ever run a certain speed, then that is the limit of where my growth is going to be, both mentally, but also physically, and in the results that I'm going to get from it.
And do you find that sometimes often people will then blame the programming instead of looking in and figuring out what the mental blocks are?
I think that they like to, it would be like me blaming the book for why I'm not getting better, even though I have an opportunity of a new book. But that might not be the best example, actually, because the programming, that would be like if the programming never changed. But it's, and the reason why, if I switch programs, let's say I go do something that's just running. I've been doing street parking, or I've been doing CrossFit, and I go and I do a program that's just running, or I go and do a program that's just lifting. People will see results right away for a short time. Why? Because they're doing something different. They're doing it. That's all that it is. And then eventually with that program, unless they add in something different, or unless they add an intensity to that and keep pushing in a very uncomfortable way, there will be a stalemate there. Right. And then there will be a stalemate with the next thing. Anytime you change what you're doing, your body's going to be like, wait, what is this? And so essentially that's why CrossFit can be so potent for so long, though, is because it's of the constantly varied component. Now, if you're not constantly varying your intensity as part of that, and that's something that we used to talk about in the seminars, like the intensity is part of the variance. Some days, and that can be because some of the workouts are intended to be a lot more intense. They're shorter. It's like there's no break, kind of the open workout, how you're feeling about it, versus some of the workouts are longer, but also how you're approaching them needs to vary as well.
Yeah. There's a couple good stuff popping up right now. Can you pull that up, Salvi? Frederick, how do you say the last name? Nietzsche. He who would learn to fly one day must first learn to walk and run and climb and dance. One cannot fly into flying.
Mm-hmm.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. All right, so Shelly, high intensity or just looking at the workout of the day and not feeling invested in the fast movements, the goals, the score. So I actually have an answer to this one too, from my perspective, but what would you say to that?
My answer to that, because I've been in that stage many times, like
Many times, Shelly, you're not alone.
Through like pregnancies, and then in the past like year when we've been going through a lot of like just heavily like emotional and the lack of sleep and stuff. I just don't worry about the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll still do the movements.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this kind of yesterday. I pushed intensity a little bit, but yesterday I did Tuesday's workout, which was the run 400, 40 back squats, 20 toes to bar run, and then back. I committed in my mind to doing all 40 of the squats unbroken, but other than that, I just didn't like sell out on the bike. Mm-hmm. I broke the toes to bar into sets of 5. I grabbed water a couple of times. Mm-hmm. But here's the truth, because there's practicality and then there's truth. And I think it's important to share both of those things. That workout helped me to maintain consistency. It didn't make me better necessarily. It helped me to maintain where I'm at. Mm-hmm. It helped me to hold on for dear life to my fitness that I'm clinging to right now. But it's not, if I only ever work out that way, I'm not going to progress and I'm not going to get better.
Right.
So there's two things that can be true at the same time. Mm-hmm. And ultimately where people struggle is if they can't hit intensity, they just won't do the workout, or they'll think they need to do another type of training. That's where people are messing themselves up. Mm. You don't need to go do something else.
Right.
You need to save the intensity for the days that you feel ready for it.
Right.
And you can still use the movements and the workouts and maybe just not worry so much about the goal times and the scores and all of that. Mm-hmm. And you'll be surprised some days, and you've probably experienced this, you'll go in and you'll feel like you're not going to want to go intensity. The step up workout a couple of weeks ago was that for me. I wasn't planning on going past like 15, and then I ended up, and so sometimes once you're in it, you're like, I actually feel fine and I'm going to push it today. Or sometimes you feel like you're going to feel fine and you don't. Mm-hmm. And you have to back off.
Yeah. And I think who was it? Shelly. Yeah. So Shelly, going back to even I'm not sure. You are a member of Street Parking, right? Okay. So I am in funk right now. I am committed to shift and increasing the weights, but I'm mentally in a slump, and that slump pulls into my workouts. I know it's not just about the workouts though. Well, for starters, that's a great recognition about where you're at spiritually. Like something's going on, and making sure that you don't blame the fitness. But even when you are in that state, like, we opened up with saying like, we haven't been sleeping, we're frustrated, we're overwhelmed, like all these things. Then the whole fitness freedom term got coined because we want you guys to have fun with your fitness. What's going to help you stay consistent? For me, if I were to look at some of the workouts as written, oftentimes I would probably struggle with being consistent because I have my own flavor. I have my own style to how I like to approach workouts. So I actually did a post on my social media the other day, taking that same workout, and extra challenge usually would have been 135 on the back squats. But I was like, you know what? I don't feel like going that heavy. I don't want to warm up at all, actually. But here's the thing though, what's something that I haven't done in a while? And I do feel like squatting, and I wanted to try something, and I just went overhead squats. I was like, I haven't done overhead squats in a while. So I'll keep the same format, but I'll just change the movement. So I use the structure of the workout to then have freedom within it. And then I upped the reps on the toaster bar for myself and Salvi, and then the runs were the same. And at first I was like, I'm not going to pay attention to the goal. Maybe I'll try to stick to the back end. But even if I go over, I'm just happy that I'm doing something I haven't done in a while, and I'm having fun with my fitness. Once the workout started and I kind of understood where I was at with my pacing and I was in a flow, I was like, oh, I think I can actually get into the goal range on the back end. That way I can maintain a level of intensity through this workout. And then when it was all said and done, Salvi and I walked away. We're like, whoa, that was actually so much fun. I really enjoyed it. That's what helps me stay consistent in my workouts. I tend to kind of customize constantly for what I feel like doing, but using the structure of the workout to then have fun.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I've been doing lately, you've seen me do this at least once a week, is I'll take a workout with like 400-meter runs in it, and I'll put a 50-pound sandbag on my back and walk the 400, which is still very challenging in a different way, but not like I feel like my heart's about to explode and I'm going to pass out way.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, this is like, I'm strengthening my legs. I'm strengthening my core. Like this is like some kind of grunt work. I'm outside. But I don't feel like I'm going to black out. So you can find ways. Salvi, put Carlene's comment on, because this is something that Coach Carlene, myself, and Coach Danny talked about when he was here last time, or maybe it was the time before, which we're working on behind the scenes, some ways to help you guys. So she said send it days and training days. Carlene, you'll probably remember we talked about like I'm training, which means I'm in a good place in my life to not only do the workouts and often do them with intensity, but maybe even add in extra stuff. I'm like in a training phase.
Right.
And that can be, for any of us, we find ourselves in windows where it's like, my kids are doing good. They're sleeping good. Like I don't have work stress. My health feels good. I kind of want to do some more. That's like a training phase. And then there's the thriving. We called it a thriving phase, which is like, no, I'm just using my fitness to make my life better. I feel generally good. Some days I go hard, some days I don't, but I'm thriving. Great. Like I'm going to go in, just the daily workout's plenty for me. And then there's like the surviving phase that you might find yourself in, where you're just like, if I show up and just do shift with no clock, that's a huge win for me. And to expect yourself to always be in one of those places, I think, is what really messes people up.
Right. It says oftentimes see people who want to add in more work in an effort to avoid having to ever really be that uncomfortable in their training. Many of us would rather walk a 5K than run an all-out mile. And if we were under the impression that both would deliver the same results, most of us would choose the long walk 7 days a week.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of how intensity delivers results. We take that like 5K versus the mile, but I'll even simplify it even more. If someone were to walk 1 mile and someone were to literally run 1 mile as hard as possible, technically they both did the same workout. Like they both did the same amount of work. But I think we all are smart enough to know, well, the person who ran the mile is going to get a lot more out of that. But then you're like, but the person who walked that took them 15 minutes. Like their workout was longer than the person who ran the 6-minute mile. Like, isn't it better to go longer? And it's like, well, no, because they were walking the whole time. And it's not that there's no value in walking, but just because it took longer doesn't mean that it's better, or just because they did the same amount of work doesn't mean they're going to get the same result if they were like literally walking through it. And you can walk through workouts. And a lot of times people will say, well, I'm going to do part A, B, C, and all this stuff. And you never really go all out at any of it, because what you have to do in that scenario, like let's say you're going to do lifting and then you're going to do the workout and then you're going to do some accessory stuff afterwards. The whole time you're like, I'm in it for this whole duration. And if I black out in my lifting, well, that's going to make me suffer in my workout. So I don't want to do that. So you hold back a little bit in the lifting and you don't get quite as uncomfortable as if you were just doing the lifting.
Right. And
then in the workout, you just start doing your thrusters or whatever. You're like, well, I think I need to take a break because I'm just tired because I was just lifting. And so in your mind, you have an immediate excuse as to why you're not moving as fast as you think you should be.
Right.
And then in the accessories, it's like you end up, I feel like most people end up, because I've had times where we've done some stuff like that, you end up going through the motions. Like you're going through the motions. And I get it why athletes, like these CrossFit athletes, they got to do their tricep press downs and their pull aparts and like their handstand hold, like they got to do all that stuff. Right. But most people just end up like, it's a check the box, half hour of why.
Sure. Well, so,
and some of it can be good injury prevention and stuff like that. I'm not saying there's no value, but.
Yeah. And that's this will probably get talked about a little later, but also the awareness that intensity is really hard. And this is now coming from parents of 3 kiddos and being really busy and just lack of sleep. It's also really hard to achieve intensity, a level of intensity, when we're sleep deprived.
Mm-hmm.
But does then that go to relative intensity then? Or because
because it's relative to your physical and psychological tolerances, which can change from day to day.
Right.
So one day, even if you took the same workout, one day you might be able to do it at a much faster pace or use a heavier weight or whatever. And literally a week later, if you were to give that person the same workout, but the whole week before they were sick or their kid was sick or whatever, all of a sudden they're like, what they're capable of physically and psychologically that day. And it's honestly, it's largely psychological. And I think the biggest value that people like us have gotten from our past is we had to grow accustomed to performing intensity when we were really messed up.
Yes.
And so there's that piece that we gained from our competitive days where like, I mean, by day 3 of regionals or by day 3, 4 of the games, like you're so messed up, but you still got to go. And so that's a skill that needs to be learned. So I would also encourage from time to time, when you are messed up from lack of sleep or whatever, to be like, no, I'm still going to go for it, because that is a skill that can be learned, and you can learn how to overcome all these thoughts in your head that are telling you why you can't go hard today. And I'm not saying you should do it all the time, but I think that there's a huge value in developing that skill. I think what we did with like the Sisyphus Gauntlet last year was really great for that, because they were so long and repetitive, and it didn't take a lot of like it was just carry something, push something, whatever. That's a skill that can be developed.
And also recognizing too, that would be a great time to, sometimes you're going to have to go away from what the suggested loading weight is to achieve intensity. So if you are completely wrecked or you're not in the mood for it, it's like, all right, cool. Maybe instead of using, and I'll just use generic weights at this point, instead of 95, 65, I'm going to have to go 75, 55 today, or I'm going to have to even go lighter than that.
However, I also, and it probably says this somewhere in here, sometimes Kim will know, because I've ranted about this so many times in the last like 8 years. What I see often, so there's the people who want to add volume because it gives them an automatic out from intensity, because they're like, well, I got to do my run after this, so I can't go too hard. There's also the people that like to throw on a weight vest, or the people that like to go heavier than the suggested weight, or the weight that would allow them to actually get the intended stimulus. Because as soon as I'm using 95 as opposed to 75, I have an immediate out for, well, I had to break it. Like, oh yeah, my time was, I know the goal was like 7 to 10, but I was 12 minutes, but I used 95. And it's like, well, the workout would have been much more painful if you would have used 75 pounds and done it in 8 minutes.
Yeah. So
but you're trying to have an out.
Yeah. When I say that my out would be to, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'd be in the category of going heavier for my out, as opposed to like, if I walk in there, I'm like, oh, I
see you and Salvi do it all the time. And I don't think you guys are searching for an out, because sometimes, like what I plan on doing in Project April, without giving it away, my times are going to be slower. And the workout would probably be more painful in a different way. But if there's a challenge that I'm going to give to myself for Project April, that is just, it's going to be more of a psychological challenge than an intensity challenge.
Well, actually, 100%. Last night was a perfect example. Salvi came over and we were looking at Friday's workout, which is, Salvi, jump on the screen really quick, please.
The time goals, by the way.
So we literally sat down like, do you want to do the strength version of this workout, or do you want to do program B version, which program B was highly intense. That was intensity.
It was with the unreasonable goal time.
Hold on, we did fix the goal time, so please chill out, please. We had a conversation around that, and what we came up with.
No one wants. Yeah.
I was like, nah, man. Like, I'm not trying to hurt that bad today. So that was my out. It was like, even if I dropped, like in general, anyway, I was like, I don't want to hurt that bad today. So we chose to go for the strength version of that workout, and that felt great, because then we were able to then have fun with our lifting, and even when we got done with the lifting portion, well, then we went just heavy singles. We're like, just want to have fun. We're feeling good. We're warmed up.
285. Yeah.
And it goes right back to that example. Like, would you rather right now, if I was like, you got to choose one of these two and you got to put your shoes on and do it right now, you either need to do an all out 800-meter run, or you need to run a 5K. What would you choose?
5K.
Absolutely.
5K.
You'd be like, no way.
No, I'm just gonna cruise and hold my 8-minute mile time.
As soon as all out is introduced, the furthest I'm choosing to go is 200 meters. Anything over that, and I would rather run a 5K.
Palms are sweating.
But
like, if you told me I had to do an all out 400 right now, or run like I don't know, you might be able to push me to a 10K over a 400 meter all out run at this point. Like, no way.
Because your recovery would take as long as the
I tear my
10K.
hamstrings.
You would hurt yourself. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
So there is like, we want you to know that. Okay, so what do you then think about those people that have this idea in their head? Because I mean, I just showed you, and this is just from the context of that specific social media clip. Who was it? John Wellborn, CrossFit Football.
Oh yeah.
Who said like, you know, people.
It's Goliath.
Yeah, that's pretty much Goliath. Speaking of Goliath, anyway, he said that comment around, you know, coming in here. Who wants to come in here every day and like, you know, push themselves to the point where on the floor, like, you know, what was that comment?
I don't know, but I know what you're saying. Like, who wants to basically like light themselves on fire every single day? And nobody. Well, we used to do it in the past. We used to do it in the past, for sure. But nobody. I think also there's this misconception of the fitter you get, the less that it hurts. And then I think probably we get some cancellations because people are 2 years in and it still hurts. And they thought that at some point it would stop, and actually it can tend to get worse.
Yeah.
And now not only does it hurt worse or the same amount, but by the way, by hurt, I don't mean like I have a bad shoulder from my car accident and I have, you know, a repaired knee. I don't mean that kind of pain. I mean like hurts like the discomfort because of the intensity, not like actual joint pain or you're hurting yourself, injuring yourself. I think we probably get some cancellations because people assume that when the more they do it, the less it's going to hurt. And then they find that the more they do it, the more that it is uncomfortable, and they just don't want to be uncomfortable. And I think that's kind of what he was talking about. And that's where, again, like consistency and choosing one or two workouts, and recognizing the phase that you're in. Are you in the training phase, the thriving phase, or the surviving phase, and allowing yourself to have those times?
Yeah, so then I think we kind of touched in on that. The next part of this blog was like, so how hard do I need to go exactly? And what does that mean? You know, because it's, you know, as we go through this write-up, it says we have seen members who do a lot of workouts sort of jog through each one. I think we really touched on that. So we'll continue to move forward. We have to, okay, so here we go. We have to be honest here. This is hard to do, and it's not always fun. What it looks like is looking at the daily workout, watching the demo video, and checking the goal and tips, then picking the weight, customization, and attacking the workout at the pace that is truly all you've got. Don't overpace. Don't stay in your comfort zone. Always move well, of course, but really go for it. And when you nail that, you'll know. You won't want to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, in fact, intensity is so uncomfortable that if you aren't used to it, we suggest starting out by picking 1 to 2 sessions per week that you are going to really send it, and then maintain consistency on the other days.
Yeah.
Nothing more to elaborate on that?
I mean, not really. I still feel the same way. I think, and I totally get it. Life is very challenging. And when you're going through some things that are mentally, emotionally, or physically exhausting, with whatever that might mean for you, to add, I got to go out and really wreck myself on a workout can feel overwhelming and can feel like I don't want to do this. And so I totally get that. I think that you need to allow yourself to be in a stage where you're not as worried about your time. The movements are still functional movements. So certainly you wouldn't want to go to just straight up isolation type movements and machines, or not working out at all. That's not a good solution, because the best way to create energy is through exercise. Like, and that's a huge misconception. I think people think, well, if I exercise, I'm going to be more tired. If you over exercise, or if you maybe are hitting intensity too often in a life stage that's not appropriate, that might be true. But in general, people who exercise have a lot more energy regardless of what the other circumstances are going on in their life. So that's key. But I also think that there's value in knowing like, hey, right now is just not the season. But there's value in, like I said, overcoming. There's value in saying like, I am freaking sleep deprived. I am certainly try to eat enough, you guys, but like, yeah, I've got all this stuff going on. I think there's value physically, but even more so, I think, okay, so spiritually speaking, the other day I was working out and I was pushing, I think it was when I was testing that endurance workout potentially, where me overcoming physical struggle reminds me of who I am and what I am capable of overcoming outside of that.
Yes.
So it's like a little dose of a reminder of like, I can overcome stuff. I can get through stuff. This is really uncomfortable and I'm going to get through it. And I'm not going to try to make it easier for myself. I'm just going to chip away at it and work as hard as I can. And that mindset can really transfer.
Absolutely. I felt that on Saturday for Curry's birthday workout.
Oh my God.
I didn't, that's the last thing I wanted to do. I actually didn't want to do it at all, but
I
started
horrible.
it, you know, committed to, you know, I went lighter on the weights for the kettlebells, for the thrusters. So I pushed myself to go unbroken, running on the hill. And I just remember thinking after round 2, it's exactly that. I found myself getting a little emotional because it's just like, man, this right here is what has trained me to endure the spiritual discomfort, because the physical discomfort, you know, all the training and the physical discomfort and the mental discomfort that comes from this has definitely transferred into all of this. And it was just, it was that dose of motivation that was needed to be like, hey, you're sharpening here so you can sharpen there.
We've talked about that like a lot, like in our recovery journey and all of that stuff, is like how much our past physical discomfort and us just continuing to show up when we were physically uncomfortable, physically so sore, physically so wrecked when we were training to compete, how that has aided us so much in our time that we've been going through the past 2 years. Because it's just like, it's like Rocky in the fight. You just keep standing up and you're like, all right, we're going, we're in it. We're still doing it. And I think we need to stop thinking of our workouts as just I'm training my body physically. There's so much that you can gain mentally and emotionally through overcoming when you don't want to do another rep, when you want to take a break earlier, when, you know, like the workout that we did a couple weeks ago, which was the back squat unbroken wall ball situation.
And then the run into the 400. Yeah.
Us programming specifically that they were to be unbroken. And the girls that I did that workout with, or the women that I did that workout with, I said, it's more important that they're unbroken than that you do all 30. So what I want all of you guys to do is on the very first set, do as big of a set as you can. For some of you that might be 30. I think for a couple of them, it was like 24, 25. I know Caitlin, she went with a lighter ball and did 30 every time, as opposed to, well, I'm going to, you know, I can't do 30. So I'm just going to do 10, 10, 10. It's like, no, push to the limit and then hold it, you know, and that was a really great opportunity. And you learn so much about yourself. And these workouts are not just to make you physically look a certain way, or even your performance, although that's largely mental, but it's like all of these skills that you're learning through physical discomfort, we're trying to get you to transfer them outside of the gym or out of your garage as well. And the going back to mechanics, consistency, intensity, it's mechanics. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Like in life, learn how to do things properly, learn how to, you know, learn about what it is that you're trying to do. Consistency, just showing up. The biggest hurdle that most people have is just to like literally start the workout. And you've won if you've done that. And then it's like, but also what else can I gain from this? How into it can I be, or how much can I gain from this? And that's going to be in the intensity piece.
Absolutely. With that being said, I think that kind of finishes off the blog, and it actually puts us at an hour and 12 minutes.
Wow.
You know, before we go into,
Does people have questions?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to open up, because we're very in the coaching phase, or like as coaches, we're here to help answer any questions that you may have for those of you tuning in. Salvi, jump in. Emma, jump in. Maybe you can kick off some of the questions. Do you have any questions, Emma? Emma's here to join us. She's like helping Salvi out.
Hello.
Yeah. What you think?
I thought it was great. A lot of good takeaways. I don't have any questions, honestly, just absorbing the knowledge.
Emma's ready for her level 1 seminar.
What I would say to like somebody who's in like Emma, how old are you?
I'm 21.
Okay. What I would say, and encourage anybody that's in their like younger phase of life, I do think, and this is not that everybody or even most people should have any intention of being like a high level athlete. But in that phase where you do have the most free time and the most energy, I would, and especially like, I don't know if Emma's planning on having children or not, but women who are planning on having children, the best thing that you can do in that stage is to get as fit as possible when you're young, because it is actually, there is truth to the fact that you can hold on to it a lot easier than you can gain it later. So that was my encouragement to you, Emma.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. I think you said it in a previous, it might have been a car rant or one of these before, talking about how when you started out and just like building as much muscle as you could, like that was the greatest thing you've ever like done for yourself.
Yeah, because now it would be a lot, I'm assuming it would be a lot more difficult to gain muscle. I mean, based on scientific studies and stuff like that, there's times in your life where it's a lot easier to gain muscle than other times. It's kind of like, you know, how little kids can like learn a second language so easily when they're little, and then the older you get, the harder, like learning new skills, learning how to move properly, gaining muscle mass, like your energy levels are just higher. I think I would encourage people to take it that are still in that stage, or people who have kids that are eventually going to be in that stage, to really encourage gaining it as much as possible when your circumstances are a little easier.
Yeah. I know for people my age, there's a lot of like rhetoric around just making terrible choices nutritionally.
Oh, hey, say no more. I don't know exactly.
Look,
It's also like a financial thing too, though, right? Like it's cheap, like,
yeah,
which is
So
a
there's, like-
misconception, but also I get it.
right. So like build as much muscle as possible or iron out your nutritional deficits and bad habits. Like how do they stack up against each other?
Well, I
Your
would say
guys' opinion.
they feed each other, right? Because like if you're not properly fueled, or if you're like hungover, now I've worked out hungover many times. And actually I'm usually, I remember I would always have really good workouts the day after I would drink when I used to drink.
Right.
And I was so silly because I was like, oh yeah, it's because I was, and it's like, no, it's because when you were drinking, you actually ate a lot of food. And so you actually have enough, like you ate enough finally because you got sloppy with your eating while you were drinking also. And so you're just properly fueled to actually push in this workout today. But I think they can kind of go hand in hand, because if you're not sleeping, if you're like not eating enough, or if you're fueling improperly, it will limit how hard you're able to go in workouts anyway. So they kind of do go together. But when you're young, and Julian is the prime example of this, you can get away with a lot of really crappy eating and still get really fit.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. I was like wing stopping away, you know, depending on what day of the week it was. I knew what kind of special
It was
deal.
shocking to me.
Nelson
Dating.
says the TikTok kids are all on trend.
I mean,
You know, yeah. Ask DH. He's a TikToker. Are you on trend, DH? They definitely feed each other. Athena's on here, by the way.
oh, hi. I've
Yep.
seen a few. of
But
them.
fuel will influence all performance, and it's a big circle. Heck yeah.
You know what? EC has a theory about this. I don't know if it's her theory or if it's actually like been studied, but she does talk about it, where the most important piece that she'll say is exercise, because oftentimes people who exercise will make better nutrition choices, but it doesn't as often go the other way around. So because there are a lot of people who are willing to diet, but they're not willing to be uncomfortable, and they don't want to exercise. So they're willing to like eat well, but they're like, nah, I'm not trying to lift, or I'm not trying to be uncomfortable and sweaty. But oftentimes exercise, because of all sorts of reasons, like endorphins, but also like, hey, I want to feel good in my workouts, will encourage people to also make better food choices.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, we're going to go into our next subject really quick. Thank you, Salvi and Emma, for jumping in on that. Yeah, now we're shifting more into like, that was like our fitness chatting and expertise, and now we'll go into like, you know, our personal conversations here, which is, you know, part of what the show is also about.
I was really pumped at that comment that I saw on Instagram last night from the Jewish woman.
Yeah, you saw a comment on there that just wanted
Where
to
is it?
see what your perspective or your update was on the Esther story.
Yeah, there was a Jewish woman that said that they're about to celebrate, I'm probably saying this wrong, Purim.
Yeah, and what I will say this, like there was like a reading that I was reading today, and some of this stuff for some individuals that maybe don't have a relationship or a walk with faith. This is all just stuff, really reflective stuff to really think about, because as we're getting older and obstacles get thrown our way, like at some point you're going to hit a wall, and how do you persevere and get through that wall?
Mm-hmm.
So do you want me to go over this, or you want to give an update on Esther?
Well, I was just going to say that her comment, like, I felt really encouraged by it, because Miranda's version of Esther, she's this woman, I'm assuming that she's a Jewish person, because she said that she would love to hear more about my take on the rest of Esther, because Purim, however they say it, is next week, which is the holiday that was created. So in the book of Esther, when the Jews are saved and they defeat, the people that are trying to massacre them, basically, Mordecai, who was Esther's cousin, creates a new Jewish holiday, which is this Purim. And Purim, well, I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. That it's still celebrated to this day. And so this woman is Jewish, and they read the book of Esther every year around this time. And the fact that she wasn't like super offended by my interpretation of the book, I just felt really encouraged by that. And I felt like, so yeah, that's all I wanted to say about, is to thank her for that if she sees this.
Well, what is the update on?
I don't remember kind of where we left off, but basically, so Esther puts herself out there where she could have been killed, essentially, for going to the king. First of all, she wasn't allowed to go to the king. And if you didn't hear the first part of the story, I'm sorry, but basically Esther becomes queen. It's on the down low that she's Jewish. One of the king's highest people in his cabinet, or whatever you want to call it, hates Jewish people, specifically one Jewish person who is Mordecai, Esther's cousin. And so his solution to that is to have all the Jews massacred in this, like, basically telling everybody in all of Persia that they can kill the Jewish people on one specific day. And it's kind of like it's like a year out or something like that. And so Esther is in this position where she's the queen, but nobody knows that she's Jewish. And her cousin's like, hey, you got to tell the king that you're Jewish so that he will not have all of us killed. And she's like, well, he's just going to kill me. Anyway, she puts herself out there. She tells him that she's Jewish in a very smart. She just doesn't run up to him crying, saying, like, what are you going to do? I'm Jewish. Like, she invites him for this dinner, him and this Haman guy who's trying to kill all the Jews. And I wouldn't say that she tricked them, but there was definitely like a buttering up process that happened to get in this position where the king is just so upset. And then Haman is put to death. And
what is it true that she said, why do you want to kill me?
I don't, not exactly in those words, but basically on the second banquet that she invites them to, it's just Haman whose idea was to kill all the Jewish people in the first place, and the king. And she basically tells him, the king, like, hey, there's somebody who wants me to be put to death. Yeah, essentially. And the king's like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, me and all my people. Well, he doesn't still know that her people are Jewish people.
Right.
And in one of the interpretations that I heard, he wasn't even entirely, potentially, he wasn't even entirely aware that the people that Haman was trying to kill were the Jewish people. They were just the people who were a problem, was what in one of the things that I had read or listened to about it. Because I read and listened to a lot. Anyway, she has them at this dinner. It's just the three of them. And she's like, hey, there's someone who wants me and all my people killed. And the king does love her. And she spent 2 days reminding him of that before she brought this up. And so immediately he's like, who would do this? Da, da, da. And the king like leaves to go figure out what he's going to do about it. Or she tells him that it's Haman. Right. She's like, well, it's him. Like I'm Jewish and he's trying to kill all the Jewish people. And so the king, because back then he had put out the decree that you could kill all the Jewish people and those things could not be reversed. And so he like walks out to figure out like, what am I going to do? Like I've got myself in an impossible situation. I can't say the decree's off because that's not allowed and it's going to make me look really bad. But also if the queen is killed, that's also going to look really bad. Like what he's in this, and Haman, I guess during that whole scene where the king goes out, falls at like the queen's feet. Like it would be like if we were sitting on a couch and he sat next to her, which was just not allowed. Like he wasn't even allowed to be in a room alone with her, let alone
Wow.
sit next to her on a couch.
Mm.
So the king comes back in, King Ahasuerus or Xerxes. There's two ways that he has two names, comes in and sees Haman sitting on the couch next to his wife, which he basically at that point might as well be like trying to sleep with her back then.
Mm-hmm.
And he's able to put Haman to death because of that.
Wow.
So it wasn't even, he was like, oh, here's my out to get this guy killed for doing me dirty. And so Haman is killed, but then the decree is still out there. So what King Ahasuerus does is he tells Mordecai, who there's a whole backstory on Mordecai, who is Esther's cousin, where he had at one point saved the king's life. And he was just like a lowly, like Jewish person. And so, but he has some honor to him because of in the past years before this, he had saved the king's life. So he gives everything that Haman had to Esther and Mordecai. And he says, you guys, you need to come up with a decree that's stronger than the decree that's already out. I can't reverse this decree, but you can come up with one that like find a loophole here somehow so that all of your people aren't killed. Whatever you guys put out there, I will sign. And so essentially what they put out was on this day where all the citizens were allowed to murder Jewish people, which is kind of weird. It's like, I'm sorry, but like if somebody put out a decree here where it's like, you can kill all of whatever group of people, I wouldn't be like, cool, I'm in. Like, I'm like, well, it's just a weird that so many people would want to do that.
Right.
Like, it's so interesting. I'm not saying that everyone in our society wouldn't be excited about certain things, but it's just a strange thing. Anyway,
Right.
They come up with the decree that the Jewish people are allowed to fight back. And I believe there was an element of that if the Jewish people win, they can also take the person's stuff. And so their decree is like, yeah, you can still attack the Jewish people. That's allowed, but they're also allowed to fight back. And if they beat you or if they kill you, they're also allowed to take all your stuff. And so there was this battle and the Jewish people were very victorious. But what they did and what was so special about it was, as it's written in scripture, they didn't also steal all their stuff. Like basically, essentially, they defended themselves.
Yeah, they showed humility in that.
They defended themselves and they didn't also take the opportunity to take all their stuff.
Right.
Because they wanted to use this as an opportunity to, you know, God saved their people. And so they were going to be saved, but to also show the character of God by not in that situation taking all of their stuff. And so that's kind of what happened there. And what I really liked about one of the teachings was where Jesus is always woven into these Old Testament stories. And this is probably obviously where me and my Jewish friend here would have a divergence of understanding of the story, right? But God's word, so the 10 Commandments, the law of Moses was the first decree. You could think of it as like, hey, these are the rules.
Right.
And all of us in that case are dead, like impossible to keep all of those, right? So what God essentially did through Jesus was like, we need a second stronger decree that overtakes that one.
Right.
And so Jesus coming was like, I'm gonna take the place of that, and then so that was a kind of a cool twist on, or not a twist, but an explanation of how you could see the story of Jesus in the story of Esther.
Wow, that's powerful.
But I was super into it, and we're done studying it. The women's group.
Man,
so
is that
it's
so?
over.
What's next? What are you working on next for that stuff?
I don't know what the next topic is.
Wow, yeah, there was like something that I was reading this morning. That's just, are you ready to be? The topic was like, well, this is February 6th. I think you sent me a different one.
I sent you March 6th
You sent me March.
because it's March.
Oh my goodness, I was completely off.
I sent
Why do
you
I feel
March
like we're in February?
because we haven't slept. We didn't sleep in February, so it's one day.
We're really that messed up, aren't we?
Mhm.
Wow, I thought it was February.
I've done that a lot too.
Oh, okay, all right. Well,
This is the one I sent.
yeah, it's just taking the next steps, right? When you last night we were having our date night, or every Thursday we have our go-to place here. It's consistency right there. There's consistency in that, which is awesome. When you have no vision from God, no enthusiasm left in your life, when no one is watching and encouraging you, it requires the grace of the Almighty God to take the next steps in your devotion to Him. In the reading and studying of His Word, in your family life, or in your duty to Him, it takes much more of the grace of God and a much greater awareness of drawing upon Him to take the next step that it does to preach than it does to preach the gospel. Every Christian must experience the essence of the incarnation by bringing the next step down into flesh and blood reality and by working it out with his hands. We lose interest and give up when we have no vision, no encouragement, and no improvement, but only experience our everyday life with its trivial tasks. The thing that really testifies for God and for the people of God is the long run and steady perseverance, even when the work cannot be seen by others. And the only way to live an undefeated life is to live looking to God. Ask God to keep the eyes of your spirit open to the risen Christ, and it will be impossible for drudgery to discourage you. Never allow yourself to think that some tasks are beneath your dignity or too insignificant for you to do. And remind yourself of the example of Christ in John 13, 1 through 17. So with that reading there, right, last night what we were talking about, yeah, it just feels like life right now, we're just drudging through it, or I feel like there's like a lack of vision personally. And this isn't to take away anything that's going on here with street parking. We're very clear about, like, we have a passion for helping people. We're so, we feel like our stewardship and our ministry is in helping people in their health and fitness to reach you guys where you guys are at. But in our personal lives, like recently, the way I was so used to approaching life, well, I feel like I just got, how would I describe it? Just God just slapped me in the face out of love and just sat me down. And it just, I got rocked for sure. And in this season, I can recognize all the ways that I want to operate in life as the old version of myself. And that's really hard. Like how anger is creeping in the back door, how resentment is creeping in the back door, how frustration is kicking in the back door. That's all trying to ultimately lead to my pride and how I was operating before. And it's just, and maybe the lack of sleep and all of this is exposing all of that. But we've been having lots of deep conversations around, like, what the heck, like, what is going on? And even that in itself is very frustrating. Can you resonate with that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I sent that to you this morning because it was a book that was given to each of us by someone at the church, and we each have one. And I was reading mine in my car this morning after dropping Nogs off at school. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we were talking about yesterday. And this is yesterday's reading. But yeah, it's like, just when you're not feeling like super clear on where you're going necessarily, which is not something that we are accustomed to, or you're not super, it's just like a normal day. Like, or like it's just like, I don't know. But those are the days. It goes back to what we were just talking about, consistency of, like, you just got to keep showing up. You guys got to keep showing up. You just got to keep showing up. And that's the hardest thing to do. Working really, really hard at something where you know what the reward's going to be, or you know, specifically the outcome that you're looking for, is much easier than trusting the process or trusting God to be like, I don't know where you're going with this. And I feel tired and I feel like I lack a little bit of vision, but I'm just going to keep showing up. That's much more challenging than working really hard to something that you know exactly what the outcomes potential is. I mean, is that kind of like how you're feeling?
I mean, it was that, I think last night I was kind of opening up where I feel like sometimes my creativity has been stifled. I feel like there's certain things that I don't feel joy coming through. Again, and how much of this is because of the sleep factor, it's probably just really messing with my mind for sure. But if anything, I feel like it's just exposing all the things that are frustrating me, and how maybe I had a certain agenda that I felt like I had to hold in order to feel like I was making growth. And it's been very difficult. And in that, I feel how much I've been needing to surrender all of it, which is also very scary. And just, again, letting his will be done. And just even the idea of that trust process, like, because we've been so used to feeling like we've been in control of our lives or our outcomes, and then it's very clear that we're not.
Mm-hmm.
That's very hard to accept.
Yeah, no, of course. I think, I mean, don't you think because your creativity, you had mentioned like creating funny posts or like even like the spoofs that we used to do, that you're feeling like a little bit of like a creative block with even some of that stuff. But wouldn't you say that potentially is part of the process of him saying like, just sit down and be quiet for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, even the things that we're good at, that are good things, can be distractions from, maybe the real what he's really trying to do. Like,
I agree. I can agree to that, because I think, what I was saying last night, and because you're like, well, what do you feel? You're trying to kind of help me process. And I was like, well, I feel really excited. And I actually get frustrated when I get interrupted, or I can't get into reading, the scriptures or listening to the sermons and really reflecting and just kind of pouring that out into, my notes and journaling on that. And also recognizing that social media has really impacted I'm recognizing like, shoot, like social media is really a big part of that distraction.
Big
because
time. Me too. That's
because we've also been lacking so much sleep. Then it's like a whole cycle, right? That I'm trying to read, but my vision's all blurry. I'm like, I don't even have the capacity to understand what I'm reading right now, which then becomes overwhelming. And then I go to like a go-to, which is then like, all right, well, let me just go mindlessly scroll. And then I get frustrated because then like 30 minutes goes by and I'm like, I could have been spending that 30 minutes to be doing this, the stuff that gives me life.
Yeah, I would say going back to like what we have been going through is very similar to me, of like a very long, so like a woman's pregnancy and her labor, right? There's just so much physical damage that is done to that.
Yeah.
And that's why I was always pretty good, not with Knox, but with the other two, at doing this like lying in period, where very challenging for someone like me. But the advice is like, hey, just lay down for like a month. Don't try to work. Don't try to like go to exercise. Just lay down, let your body heal, let your nervous system heal, let your hormones recover, like all this stuff. And it's very challenging for somebody who's used to being very physical and very productive and working all the time to do. I feel that that's the stage that we are in mentally and emotionally. It's like, just stop doing so much and just lay down, like let all the dust like settle and all of your, but our kids are not allowing us to fully recover. But does that make sense? Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's just uncomfortable for somebody who's used to like spinning so many plates at the same time.
Yeah, because what we were talking about yesterday, we've been so used to, as we both have very entrepreneurial spirits, right? Getting used to just doing, and everything we had a purpose to, we're just so used to doing. And, for both of us, like, especially at a grand scale, which obviously street parking has blown up to, and, but we've reached our limit. Yeah, we've reached our limit.
Well, and I was even struggling because yesterday, like in our couples therapy, I was struggling with this concept of like, I'm kind of re-entering the phase of wanting to, not for any reason that we love the school that our kids go to, but I've always felt called to homeschool them. And I'm like, I'm kind of going back into that. Like, I kind of want to go back to trying to do the homeschool thing again next year. And I was open with our therapist where it's like, I have never, because I started doing like plays and musicals and stuff like that when I was 7 years old.
Right.
And from that time until now, like I told our therapist, everything that I've done for the entirety of my life has been for an audience. And our therapist asked, like, can you remember a time? Like, do you have any memories where it wasn't for some sort of performance, what you were doing, whether it was your schoolwork or dance or, acting or student and I said, I don't have any memories of my life where I didn't feel, where I wasn't being told that I was extraordinary or being told to perform for other people. And so it's tough, like for me to want to go and do homeschool. It's like, well, no one's going to like, should I write a blog about it? Should I write a book about it? Should I? Cause it's like this just natural thing where I feel like I have to be And I'm not saying that I won't do those things, but it's also something that I need to look at. Like, can you just homeschool for your kids and maybe nobody sees it?
Right.
And I'm like, but it's almost like you feel like you're going to be erased or you're going to be like gone. And I think a lot of people feel that way. If I don't post, do I even exist?
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
weird.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like how we've been warped with this whole world of the internet, of social media, how you can see it. I'm like, these are deep things that we're trying to process. And now kids are so young getting introduced to all of this stuff and how they feel like all their purpose is in social media. And you can see the things like skyrocketing, like suicides and anxiety and depression and all that stuff. I know, I mean, and this is where we're very grateful for. We can see now the power of spirituality, but also as you reflect on some of these deep dives or these devotionals, some of the stuff can be very triggering and traumatic, because diving deep into things that you're scared of, or you don't want to open up that door, be like, no, I don't want to touch that. But oftentimes the things that you don't want to touch are the things that you need to address. And we're so grateful for our therapists that have been able to be a part of this journey, because and they're rooted in faith, which has been phenomenal. It's been a blessing, because I know my therapist always will help me get to the root of things, but then also now I'm going to foreshadow what I said in the beginning, right? Invite the managers and then show them a new way. Well, that new been rewiring my brain to do is tapping into the spirituality of faith and be like, the new way is not dismissing those parts of you that have helped you get through have helped you get through life. And instead of saying or killing that version of yourself, well, that's unkind, because like essentially they're part of you. It's like, hey, I'm going to invite you and I'm going to show you another way, which is trusting and bringing that version of yourself to Christ. So
What
that
did
way
you say
can,
that you can't even kill that? Like, you can try to lock them in a closet, but you can't really kill it.
yeah,
Like,
because
they'll bust out eventually.
and I love what he says. It's like, you want to unburden those versions of yourself and show them what love and trust and kindness looks like, because oftentimes in that brokenness, that stuff never got really modeled or mirrored to us. And that is what we're trying to unpack, because if not, then it's so clear how much of that unaddressed trauma that we had in our youth, then if untapped or not checked, essentially, then how much of that got projected onto you. And even yesterday, how much you were just like, wait, what? That's how you were? That was your reality? That's what you were perceiving through all of this scenario? And I was like, yeah, it was. You're like, that was a very eye-opening moment, I'm pretty sure, for you yesterday. Without getting into details, like, what do you think about that?
It was so interesting in our session yesterday, again, without getting into details, how his perception and my perception in the same home, in the same relationship, in the same experiences were so far off what I thought he was thinking versus what he was really thinking, what he thought I was thinking versus what I was really like. It's crazy. And it's because we all have our own lenses that we see the world through. And this is not just applying to marriages. It's applying to like how you interact with the freaking cashier at Whole Foods, like what you, and so often we make assumptions about people. We make assumptions about what people are thinking or what their beliefs are and why they believe what they believe. And the number of assumptions that we make on just any given day, I can't even imagine how many thousands and thousands of assumptions that we make that are wildly incorrect. And it's because we can only see the world through our own experiences. I think it has helped for us. And I think one of the major values of finding faith is like giving a new set of lenses through, trying to learn how God sees the people and God sees the world and all of that.
It's been the only way that we've gotten this far, because it took us out of our own way of thinking and put it into, the perspective of God and that, but also, and working on that relationship as well, and really diving deep into the meaning of him coming down and sacrificing himself because he loved us so much. And it starts to really unburden all those things that we feel so much shame around, you know, those coping mechanisms, those unhealthy coping mechanisms, those idols that we have. And, you know, this is not really talked about often, I feel like, or I've been seeing more memes around this around social media that makes it relatable. But everybody, when they enter a form of religion or they feel saved or whatever, and they're like, yay, like I'm saved, I'm forgiven of all my sins and everything. And they're all happy. But then as you continue to walk down that path, you start to realize how difficult it really is to stay on the path.
You hand me that thing? I have one from the other day. Keep talking.
Yeah. And like, because then you start to become aware of, you know, all the spiritual warfare that's around us. And it's a scary thing, you know. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. We got some comments on here. I see Trish up here for time for children to find a good paying full-time job. What do we got? I feel like we have some comments. Salvi, do we have anything we need to pull up really quick? By the way, Trish, I don't know what it is. There's something comforting when you're just in these chats having a conversation with us. I don't know if it's your picture. It just feels like a grandma's here, just like sipping on some tea or some coffee, or I don't know what would be your drink of choice, maybe a whiskey or even like a bush beer or something. I don't know. But you know, seeing you in the chats is like, it's like, hello, grandma. Thank you for listening to us. I hope that's not offensive. What do we have? Interesting thought to apply that lying in approach to any major change in your life. If you take that time to sit with something and let it become part of your life, maybe it won't feel so daunting. Absolutely. In my devotion yesterday from Amanda, I read out of Ruth, something is said was small steps of obedience today will make an eternal difference tomorrow. It's very powerful. Absolutely. What do we have? FOMO is real. I don't think that it is serving us a lot of times. It's healthy to do things in a non-public way just for your own mental health. Yes, absolutely, Julie. And really, we can't do anything apart from him. John 15:5, we don't have the ability to lay anything down. We don't have the ability to lay anything down. It's only in Christ and by him that we can surrender anything. Absolutely. Because if you don't have him, what do you surrender it to? But yourself or just out there? And then you're like, well, who am I surrendering this to? Yes.
Okay, I found it. This was from March 1st. It's part of this. This is the book, by the way, if you guys want to. There you go. Okay. Cool. Unless we are experiencing the hurt of facing every deception about ourselves, we have hindered the work of the Word of God in our lives. The Word of God inflicts hurt on us. It doesn't say way. I added the word way. The Word of God inflicts hurt on us more than sin ever could, because sin dulls our senses.
The sin dulls our senses was a very powerful one. Yeah.
And, you know, that's something that we've experienced is like, and I know you've said a lot to me, like even for the first like year that you were reading the Bible, you would like really focus on the stories that you liked.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And like avoid the parts or the sermons or the things that were going to bring up like stuff that you still were not willing to let go of.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you can speak of this in biblical sense, but essentially that's what you're talking about with like therapy and stuff too. It's like, yeah, I want a therapist who's going to, you know, tell me to have affirmations and tell me like all this stuff, but don't ask me to like talk about my past. Don't ask me about like why I'm still doing behaviors that I'm doing that are unhealthy. And that's essentially the Bible, like, and that's what this is saying. Unless you're experiencing the hurt of facing every deception about ourselves, we've hindered the work of the Word of God in our lives. Like you're avoiding the topics that you don't want to talk about. You're avoiding opening that door.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was first starting all of this, I was looking for a reason to justify my avoidance of certain things. Like, no, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to address that because I'm scared to. And that's the first reckon. I was constantly looking and scouring all different parts of the Bible, different proverbs, different like sermons. I was like, but I can't do that. If I do this is no way. But ultimately all of that and wrestling with all that was no way if I disclose that part of me that I will be accepted, or that version of me will be accepted. Because I knew that it's not who I was, but I was acting in a way that was not, it wasn't me. And I knew it was destructive. And it was hard. It was hard because ultimately it was just a fear not feeling accepted. But then the redirect to that, right, is recognizing that Christ accepts you and loves you unconditionally, no matter what. And once you start to really embrace that, you're able to start to build that trust relationship first, to then start to recognize like, okay, I'm going to start to trust you, and I'm going to start to let go of the things that I don't want to let go of. Because ultimately building that relationship with Christ ultimately then trickled over to you, to then being able to disclose things to you that I never wanted to disclose in this life because I was for fear of not being accepted. You know, even though constantly you kept telling me like, I love you no matter what. There's nothing that you can't tell me that I won't accept you for. But I still had to overcome like, well, what's the block here? I was terrified. But yeah, it was constantly a fear of not being accepted for who I was, you know, because I would have so much shame of the way that I was being. But I knew that it was just, ultimately all that was just a coping mechanism, you know? But now we're getting to the bits of, you know, because, you know, and God has an interesting way of working, because how interesting that the therapists that we're working with are rooted in spirituality. So then I'll speak to mine. He brings things back to the cross. It's like, whoa, like what?
You didn't know that about him.
I didn't know that about him until like at first I was like, wait, what?
It's not like why you chose him.
It's not why I chose him. I didn't choose him because of that. I chose him because I had to work on a certain type of recovery. And it's like, okay, fine. But then as we've, you know, got to work.
You didn't even choose him. Actually, our couples therapist at the time sent you to him.
Which is so crazy how everything works. Yeah. You know? But yeah, letting go of that is very difficult.
But it's so much deeper. I think, you know, we think of all the surface level, very obvious things that, okay, well, obviously if I, you know, try to walk with Jesus, I can't murder people. That's clear. I can't, you know, steal or commit adultery, like all the obvious. I can't lie. I got to be honest. I got to, you know, and we think of this like the obvious things that are in the children's songs and stuff like that. But for me, like once it starts rooting down, you're like discovering stuff that's like really hard to want to take ownership of and want to look at as essentially sin, I guess. And the example that I'll give is what we were talking about several times this weekend in our couples therapy. I had shared with Julian and I shared with our therapist that since I was very young, probably since the day that I was born, because I have 3 older brothers, I was the first girl, I have been told by parents, teachers, casting agents, whatever, there's something special about you. You're special, which you're different. I was pulled out of my classes to go into like the higher, the special, not special needs, but like the higher IQ. I don't know. We didn't. I know what you're talking
about.
The classes for kids that like were more
advanced. They're just advanced.
So I was pulled out of my, even in first, second grade elementary, that for twice a week for like an hour, I would be pulled out. We would be doing these like special puzzles and stuff like that the regular class wasn't doing. And it was just, man, and so I took on this, I'm different. I'm special. I think that this is why when I test Enneagram, I test as an Enneagram 4 is because I've been told you're different, you're special, you're unique. There's something, you know, there's a spark with you, which is not, I mean, nobody was saying, everybody was just being kind and telling me this, but I took it on. Right. And anyway, what I had shared with him where I'm like, oh my gosh, this has become potentially a problem for me is with what happened in our marriage. One of the things that was so shattering to me about it was, wait, like this can't happen to me because I'm special. Like this is like, I'm the person that everybody sees as like amazing and special, and how could, you know, and I'm trying not to like get too deep into what happened with us, but it was just so shattering to this idea that this couldn't happen to someone like me because and so, okay, then it keeps rooting down and it's like, oh no, I believe that I'm more special than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point where is this a level of arrogance that I have? Mm-hmm. And is this, and not in a way that I think that it's ever become unkind or, but it started asking me like, this is so shattering to you because it shattered your ego mm-hmm. because you thought that you were the best thing in the world. And this potentially posed the question that you're not. And I know your reasons for, you know, things that happened aren't even about that, but it really it rocked you. It rocked my belief about myself, right. Being untouchable, I guess, in that kind of way, in some way. And it's not that I thought that I was untouchable because I was definitely anxious about certain things, but I don't know if that makes sense, but that's sense, where the deeper it goes, you're starting to like,
right. Really, well, it goes back to, you know, I listening to a Keller sermon and what I posted on my story. True repentance begins when blame shifting ends, mm-hmm. right? And even in that sense, like while that was your perspective and your reality, what was ultimately even shared yesterday was like, even that still makes it about you, and it lacks it's not recognizing that what struggles we had, it was like, it was a me problem. Like you weren't right. doing anything wrong.
Well, that was my issue the whole time too, where it's like, even taking it upon myself of like, well, I could have done this. I could have done that. I should have done this, or in the future, I'll do this to control. And that places me in the position of God, essentially, mm-hmm. because I feel that I'm capable of controlling other people.
Right.
You. Right. And so that was another thing that rocked me because I thought I was doing all the things I needed to do to control you and your behavior. And I thought I was so special that, you know, and I mean, I am, everyone is special.
We're all special.
I should be the most special woman to you.
Yes.
Right. And all of this, but it's not to say that I'm not. But yeah, it just, you, when the further you get into your faith and your walk and you're willing to look at yourself and figure out like, why was this such a blow to me in the way that, in the way that it was, because it would have been a blow to anyone. But these are doors that most people are not willing to open because they just want to look at everyone else who's hurt them or the circumstances or mm-hmm. whatever, and not see like, oh, this is what was really going on for me and why this was so shattering for me.
Right.
Because I thought I was controlling and manipulating the people around me, not in a way that I was trying to hurt anyone, but I just thought that if I was good enough or doing this thing good enough or giving that much or this, that I could contain this person by my good works.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, right? And going back to like, you know, recognizing that everybody has their own journey that they're on. So these assumption things, because oftentimes, you know, the reason why we have so much fear around sharing things, our brokenness, is because, you know, again, fear of being judged, or people just looking at you at surface level and saying, and, you know, just blatantly saying, well, you know, it's a fucked up person, or this person's horrible. Oh, I'm sorry. That was very unkind of me. This person's a horrible person. What I really liked is, and that just lacks empathy and compassion for sure, because, you know, when we all, and there's a level of hypocrisy there, because, you know, if you start to say those things, you start to forget that we all have those things that we wrestle with. We all wrestle with things that are sin, and it's okay to hate the sin, but to hate the sinner, then that's sin in itself, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that you have to be careful about like automatically discounting other people's behavior and just saying like, well, this person's probably just going through a hard time. Like,
sure,
there's such a thing as righteous anger. Like Jesus rolled into the temple and tossed some tables. He wasn't
Absolutely.
Like, well, this guy doesn't know, he had a hard upbringing, and so I have to, you know, no, like some stuff, there's mm-hmm. a righteous anger for.
Right, which goes back to like, you know, it's okay, righteous anger towards the sin that's destroying us for sure.
Yeah.
Because if you work on that, then of course that pushes people to, work on being a better person.
Right.
Because absolutely, people will come in and act in a way that's just like, hold on, wait, what? And say there's nothing wrong with them, or they try to find they play the victim role. I had hard this, I heard that, and that's also not okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. We all have hard things for sure. So it's our responsibility to address that stuff, so we don't continue to hurt others.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, any Salvi, jump in here. I think we're kind of approaching
2 hours. We're at 2 hours again. Wow.
We have some great questions.
All right, hit us.
Allison.
Oh, do you have a vision to help SP members not on social media connect with each other in the future? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Okay. So you mean like meetups? Caitlin and I have been talking about summertime meetups. I don't want to give it away right now because we don't have a solid plan.
Right.
But yeah, we encourage you guys to run your own meetups at the very most basic level, and people have been doing that since 2017. But yeah, encouraging those meetups, especially in the warmer months, because we don't necessarily expect you to invite people to your home because they're strangers on the internet. But like meeting at parks and things like that. But we did some cool stuff last year. I think during like Sisyphus, especially, where people were really getting together and doing those together. So during the summer, we have some ways to encourage people that Caitlin and I have talked about a little bit.
Right. Okay, perfect. Great. What's another one, Salvi? What do we got? Love Elizabeth Elliot quote, paraphrasing, we are not our own. Anything we have or are is given by God. So we might as well give it back to God. Whatever we hold onto too tightly, he will pry it from you. Yes, very true. Hands. Nice. Great. That's right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
your therapist. Yeah.
Love all of this talk. God is love and understanding and resting, abiding in that is everything. Everything flows from that and can be viewed from there. Yes. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. So, Salvi, you can jump in here really quick. Oh my gosh. Well, there was barely anything
coffee
in
on
there.
the rug.
Oh my goodness. I just don't know how to find people. I haven't found anyone in my area. What's your area?
Yeah. Where do you live, Allison?
Bend.
Bend?
Bend.
I know we have members in Bend for sure.
I mean, Nelson lives in Bend.
Yeah, Nelson's out
So
in Bend.
Nelson, go hang out with Allison.
Awesome. So, all right, Salvi, what do you think? Is Emma jumping in here? She can jump in here.
Emily.
Hello.
All right, time to wrap this up. How you guys feeling about that?
Oh, Eugene is for.
Oh, she lives in Eugene.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
Oh, Eugene. I'm sorry, Nelson.
Eugene.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Well, we went deep that second half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions? If not, then I'm going to get a coffee.
Yeah. Go get your coffee. You earned it.
Awesome. All right. Sounds good. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for what is this, episode 7?
Episode 7.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. We'll see you guys all, next week for episode 8. And soon, actually, we have a guest jumping on board. We'll keep everybody updated on that.
Nelson's asking, what's your cold foam flavor of the month?
Oh, what have you been
Cold
getting?
foam flavor of the month. I'm back to salted caramel because pistachio, they got rid of pistachio. So I'm back to salted caramel. Yeah.
Nice.
Classy.
All right. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Later. Oof.